Manchester and the surrounding towns have drawn tourists and visitors here for many decades. A variety of lodging establishments has developed over the years to satisfy every taste, preference, and budget. Inns, bed and breakfasts, motels, hotels, and now Airbnb have all played their roles, with a new 97-room Hampton Inn at Suites scheduled to be opening soon. But times and tastes are changing, and some types of guest lodging are struggling to keep up. Among them are the independent mom-and-pop style motels. Some are still doing fine, but some owners of motels and hotels are pondering other options. One of them is Bert Hugel of the Arcadia at Sunderland Motel, who discussed some of the challenges businesses like his face.
It is hard and it is challenging in as much that you have to do everything yourself to begin with. You can't hire guys to do every little job for you. So little maintenance jobs that keeps you busy. That's cost and time. And the service to the guest, you have 10 rooms filled, you cannot afford to bring in a housekeeper if you can find one. That's another challenge.
So what would be some of the uses a place like this could be turned into if it was a motel?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know what you can do. I mean, you could bulldoze and build anything on it, but school, something like a school or religious retreat, something like this would work. Employee housing, for instance. I mean, there's still a market there for motels. We have new hotels being built, and everybody's in uproar and afraid and scared. I'm not scared of them. They're in a different league. They're in a different price range. I'm not concerned. My market is below 120, and there's plenty of people that want to come up here and spend $80, $90, $100 and have a good breakfast and do what they want to do, ride their bike or hiking or fishing, whatever.
Many hotels and motels have been converted or repurposed into basic housing. An example of one that has gotten some attention in the media is the Lamplighter Inn in Brattleboro, which has transformed itself into a provider of low-cost housing. The Manchester Planning Commission is hoping to make that process easier under the zoning overhaul now underway. Todd Nebraska, a member of Manchester's Planning Commission, explains.
As you know, we're going through a zoning rewrite, or a complete zoning rewrite with the Planning Commission right now. And as part of that, there's really, I would say, three forces that are driving this decision to put language in the new zoning ordinance that would allow motels and hotels and other types of buildings in the community to be repurposed as residential living units or multifamily residential units. The first of those is that, as we're going through the zoning rewrite, we're really consciously trying to force some more density in the downtown area. So, as we're rewriting the ordinance and going through the zones, a dense downtown surrounded by some, fairly dense commercial development, and then gradually working out from there, to less and less dense residential development until you get to the farming and rural residential and also the forest and conservation districts. So the other piece that we're working on is, as we go through the zoning rewrite, we are trying to get rid of as many overlay districts as possible. As it stands now, you could come in to get a zoning permit, and depending on where your property sits, you might have to be looking at the requirements for a zoning district plus 2 overlay districts, and it gets, kind of a little convoluted. So one of the sets of overlay districts that are going away in the new zoning ordinance is the transient commercial overlays, the corridors that went to 200 feet either side of Route 7 going north and 1130 going up the mountain. And so what you're left with then is we are going to end up with properties that are going to be non-conforming. Some of these roadside motels are going to be in districts that are no longer, they'll be non-conforming properties within the underlying zoning district. And then the third thing that's been going on, and we've been talking about, and we talked about this earlier, is that study after study shows a definite need for more affordable and workforce housing in our community. So as we're thinking through all this, we've had a couple individuals come to us during this rewrite process and public comment process and say, what about the motels? Would there be an opportunity for some of these, former or current or former motels, if in the future the owners have been thinking about, maybe we want to, change the use of this and create apartments instead of running it as a motel. We were like, that's a, pretty good idea. So we extended that a little bit and also thought about, in places like, what might happen to the Bromley Brook School at some point in time, way down the road. What if the community of Manchester and Dorset decided to get together and build a new elementary school? What purpose would MEM serve? So what the Planning Commission has decided to do is, aside from the zoning district language, we are going to be working language specifically, or language into the new ordinance that is specific to the repurposing of existing buildings for residential usage. So that wouldn't, a lot of it would cover, motels. So if, for instance, a motel that, in the new ordinance would actually be in the rural residential zone, which would have a density of 1 unit per 5 acres. If they wanted to develop, apartments there, say create 15 apartments or 15 units from their current, motel, that would be allowable within the new ordinance.
Greg Cutler, a member of Manchester Select Board and a real estate agent, sees potential for these sorts of conversions to help handle a growing need for low-cost housing in the area.
And it occurred to me that some of the underperforming motels might be ripe for a conversion to efficiency apartments, and whether it would be for workforce or maybe just some kind of affordable apartments that could be used. This is something we see all the time, requests for that kind of housing, because we do both rentals and sales. And the other idea was, or the other issue was, we've seen it borne out where people have come and said, I'd be interested in converting these into housing for whether it be workforce or affordable housing. So this is a conversation, wasn't just an idea, it's something that people are actually interested in doing. And I suppose the big issue would be for developers, it's a bottom line issue. How much do you have to spend to make it happen in order to see that work out in the long run? And I've heard too, I know that, amortize over 20 years, you'll probably get your money back out of it, but some people may not have the time or the patience in that situation. So I'm not sure how those numbers work. From an economic development standpoint, and somebody who's very interested in that in the town, I would absolutely love to see some of these properties be converted into housing for that purpose.
If you want to stay in the motel business and be competitive, it's a new ball game with the arrival of the digital era, says Alan Goldstein, the general manager of the Palmer House in Manchester.
What they need to do is change their whole business model of thinking. In the past, they would keep their rates the same and really market themselves out of the system, as it were. And in today's society, you have to use modern techniques. For instance, you have to have a good internet presence. You need to have a Facebook page. You need to have a really good Expedia presence, which is the online marketing tool. And then the third thing is Google AdWords, which Google controls the world, as we know. And so they basically have a program that you can choose which words. So if someone puts in Vermont, for instance, it would take them to your site. If someone puts in Vermont weddings, it would take them to your, it's all based on words. It's a complicated program, and most people don't understand that they need to pay a professional to run that for them.
Goldstein has another idea he and his wife may develop at some point, and they already have a nonprofit business set up to make it work.
When children who are in special needs programs reach the age of 22, the system kicks them out. So that now, instead of them going to high school every day, they really don't have a place to go. So we're trying to develop a tiny town that has tiny houses, so that's based on the Habitat for Humanity format, so that these children have a place to go.
For the GNet TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.